Hello there. Welcome to this UIUX design course. My name is Jacqueline Asaridate, a UIUX designer, and I'll be your instructor for today. I hope you enjoy the course as you move along with me. Okay, so today we'll be doing a very simple design of a web interface. You're going to be getting our design inspiration from Dribble, and then we'll bring it into our Figma to design. Today's tool that we'll be using will be Figma. Yes. So I already have my file created. If you have your Figma, you open it and then you make sure you create a new file. So to get started, I go to Dribble. I already have my inspiration down. So this is what we'll be designing for today. So this design is by Lira Design-Figma. It's on Dribble. The name of the design is NE Corp. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the image into Figma so that I don't have to keep switching back and forth as I design. So I copy and paste it here in Figma. Yeah, so there we have it. Then I start my design. So to get started, I have to create a frame for my design, right? So I click on the frame tool, or you can just use the shortcut F on your keyboard to activate the frame options, and then you select your frame option from the list that presents. So I'm going to select 440 by 1024 as that is the industry standard for any web design, sorry. So yeah, so there I have it. It's ready to go. So I have my frame now. The next thing to do is I rename my frame. So I'm just going to rename it to what should I do? A landing page, because this is a landing page. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a grid for my page so that I follow along. I follow along as I design. I like to design with a grid to guide me so I don't go into certain areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my layout grid option here. Then I click on this square thing here, then click on the option, select columns, and set my margin. I'm going to set my margin to 80 pixels. Yeah, so this is good enough for me. Okay. Let me lower it a bit so that it doesn't interfere with my design as I move along. Good. Okay, so I have my grid ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to design the Navbar. In case you don't know what the Navbar is, the thing at the top here, where you have the logo and then the menu options or the menu items and then the search bar and then a button up there. Okay, so let me zoom in for us to see our design well. Oops, I forgot something. So before we start designing, we have to... Okay, no, I didn't forget anything. Okay, so we are going to design our navbar. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to design a navbar, which is what we see here. If you can see my mouse where it's pointing and keeps moving. Okay, so since I don't really have this logo, I'm just going to put a simple text logo there and then we move along. Okay, so yeah, so I click on T in the toolbar, or just T on my keyboard using the shortcut, and then to create my logo, let me just as well as NE, right? So NE in caps. Let me see if I can get an interesting font for this. Let me make this as big as possible by increasing the font size. 40 and doesn't look to be bold. Okay, this looks good enough. So I guess I'll just stick here and make it a big. Okay, so this looks good enough. So I guess I'll just maintain this text and make the size a bit bigger, a bit bigger. Okay, so I have this there. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the menu options or menu items that we see here. So you have the about us, the mortgages, the buy a home, refinance, and then we have the button and the search icon. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the menu, the about us. Oops, I have to change the font. I really love to use Gilroy as I move along. So okay, let me first type about us, change your properties, Gilroy. Yeah, make it smaller. I think 20 is a bit too small. And make it semi-bold. Okay, let's set it to 20. 22 looks fine. 22 looks fine. So I duplicate this so I have my first text down. I'm just going to duplicate the others. This by selecting the text and then pressing and holding Command D to create a duplicate, and then using my mouse to move my duplicate away. So I have my duplicate. So now I rename it to mortgages. So my mortgage. Then duplicate again, then rename to buy a home, and then duplicate again, move to refinance. Cool. So I just evenly distribute my things up here by going here, selecting this, and then just clicking on tidy up. As you see, it distributes the space between them evenly for me. So all I have left to do is either to increase if I'm not okay with the space I have between them, or reduce it. So with this, I think 60 is okay for me. 60 is okay for me. So yeah, let me push it here a bit. Okay, it looks a bit centered. Let me reduce the color intensity. So from 100 to 70. Okay. So a bit too dark for me. Okay, so 80. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the apply now button up here. So to do that, I have to select my rectangle in the toolbar menu. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the apply now button. To do that, I have to select the square in the toolbar up there, and then draw a rectangle here on my frame. Okay, has to be a bit bigger. Okay, so let me set the height to 60 and then the width to 180, and then I round the corners. So I set the corner radius to 30. Then I change the fill color. So I change the fill color to black, pure black. Yeah. So now I have my rectangular shape. The next thing I have to do is create the text inside my shape. So selecting the text, I click on the shape and then I type apply now. Okay, so now I have my text. The next thing I have to do is make sure the text is centered both horizontally and vertically in my button. So I'm done with that now. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to group both the text and the shape. After grouping it, I'm going to rename my group to buttons. Sorry. Okay, so the next thing I have to do is I have to create the search icon. So to do that, I will be using a plugin in Figma today. I'll be using Iconify, which is a plugin I mostly use for my work. In case you don't have that installed or you don't know how to install that in Figma, I'll take you through. So to do that, right click any place or any space in your Figma, then select plugins. You see a drop down menu. In the drop down, you can just go to browse plugin in the community. That's if you don't already have the Iconify plugin installed. In my case, I have it installed, so you can see it in the list of plugins I have installed here. So if you don't have it installed, you just select browse plugins in community and it takes you to the community. You just type Iconify here, Iconify, then search. Click on the search. Then you select plugins up here. So select plugins. It shows you all the plugins under Iconify. So here, if you don't have it installed, you are going to see the install button. Then you just click on it. It's an instant install. If you have it installed, you are going to see something like this installed, as you are seeing on my laptop. Okay, so back to our design. Since I already have Iconify, I right click, go to plugins, and then select Iconify in my plugin list. Right? So from here, I just search for the search icon. I search for search. Yeah, I get how it sounds. Okay, so I select an option from the options presented to me. In this case, I'll just click and drag to an empty space on my Figma, then I workspace, and then I close it. So I have this, I'll just drag it here to my frame. Yeah, it's small, so the only thing I'm going to have to do is increase its size so that it becomes visible enough for users to see. Okay, how's it looking? Okay, so my search has a big head compared to the other. It seems smaller. It has a big head. I want it to be a bit similar to what is there, so I'll have to look for another search icon. So back to Iconify, search. Let me see. Let me go to the next page to see my options presented. Okay, I think this is good for me, so I'll select this. Yes. So I just increase the size to 40. Let's see how it looks. Looks good enough. Yeah, looks good enough. Looks close. Then I'll reduce the size, the color opacity or color intensity from 100% to 50%. Yes. I love what I have so far. So the next thing I'm going to have to do is create this shape you see here, right? This shape, I'm going to create it. To do that, I'll select the square tool from the shape tools, and then create a shape here. Make it big enough. Okay, so the height 590 and then the width 630. Okay, Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to round the corners, but now I'm going to do it a bit differently from what we usually know. I'm going to round the corners independently, the four corners independently. So to do that, I go here and I select this independent corners button here. Then it gives me the various input options for the various four corners of the shape I have there on my frame. So yes, the first corner I'm going to give it 100, and the second one I'll give it 50. Then the third one I'll give it 50 as well. Then the final one I'll give it 100. No. So the third one I have to give it 100. Then the final one I give it 50. It doesn't look too close as this, so what I'm going to do is, instead of changing the you could choose to continue changing the values here, but for me I'll use these dots that you see here in the squares. I'm going to use these here to round it further so that it looks closer to this. So to do that, in order to not round all the shapes at once, I have to press, in order to not round all the corners at once, I'll have to press Option or Alt on the keyboard, then round. Okay, so I think I'll just have to round it like that. Okay, so round. This looks good enough. 250 looks good enough for me. So I just round this to 250 as well. Yeah, this looks close enough. I'm proud of what I've done. I'll just reduce the width a bit. So I'll reduce the width, yeah. So I'll just make it a square instead of rectangle. So now my width value is the same as my height value. So my width is 590 and my height is 590 as well. So the shape is 590 by 590. So I move it a bit away from the left because I have the social media icons I have to put here. So I have to move it a bit away to create space for that. Okay, good. So now I have my shape. The next thing I'm going to do is to fill my shape with images. This time I'm going to use a plugin again. So to do that, I already taught you how to install a plugin. So I'm going to use Unsplash plugin. So I already have it installed. So if you don't have it installed, use the earlier method I taught you on how to install plugins to install Unsplash as well. Okay, so right click, select Unsplash from my plugin to activate it. Okay, so if your internet is fast, it actually loads up faster, but I think I might have a little issue with my connectivity here, so it's taking some time. Well, it just loaded. Okay, so to continue, what I'm going to do is, you see that this looks like a living room, so I'm going to search for living room images. So I just search for a living room. Nice. I have gorgeous and nice beautiful pictures here. I'll just select the first one since that looks good enough for me. So yeah, in order to make sure that your image fills your shape, you have to make sure that the shape is selected before you click on the image to get it downloaded into the shape. I hope that is understood. Okay, so now I have my shape. This looks good enough for me. Okay. Yeah. Looks good enough for me. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the text here for life's biggest moves. To do that, once again, I find my text tool. Then I click on it and then I click on my frame and start typing. Life biggest moves. So I have to increase the font a bit. Set it to 60. And instead of semi-bold, let me make it bold. Yeah, bold looks good enough. Let me set it to 70 and see how it looks. Okay, bold is a bit too, back to semi-bold. Okay, I like this. So I'll just maintain the semi-bold. Okay. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to create this with our hearts full text down here. So once again, I'll just duplicate this here so that I don't have to reset the properties, text properties. So you can choose to type or just use a lorem ipsum something. So with our full suit, oh, okay. So I check the spacing between this and this. To do that, you can just select one of the items and then press and hold Alt or Option on your keyboard, and then hover over the next element you want to compare the distance to. So let me move it to make sure it's 40.